My name is Beth Kuiper, and I work at the Octavia Flynn Public Library here in Gallup, New Mexico. I recently moved back to the Gallup area after studying art at Cerritos College in California. Now, I've worked in a lot of different mediums, art mediums, and recently I have discovered a love for abstract art. And abstract art is really a great way to tell your story visually or to share some memories. The great thing about abstract art is really you can use so many different forms of art mediums that you already have sitting around your house. And really almost anything will work. And you don't even really have to be very artistic. This is more about telling your story, about getting some of your emotions out, letting some energy flow, and reacting to some of the pieces and some of the marks that are on the board already. Now, to start out with, you could use canvas, or you can use paper. I like to use board, some wooden board, because it's a little more sturdy, and we're going to be building a lot of layers on here with all these different techniques. Like I said before, you can really use any material that you have around the house and that you feel comfortable working with. If you're working on wood, watercolor might not be the best, but I would stick to like acrylic paints. You can use pastels. I have some great markers here. These are pen markers that you can buy almost anywhere. I'm going to be showing you some techniques for a lot of these different things. We can use stencils. We have even some spray paint that we could use. Any kind of brushes that you have, and we're also going to be making some marks in wet paint as well. So anything to like scrape paint on or off. You can use some water. I'll be looking at a lot of different techniques. We also I have some pencils here that you can make some mark with, or pens. Another thing that we can do, and that we'll talk about a little later, is just gathering some, if you see some pictures that you really spark your interest or really that you like, then just cut those out, and you can glue those even onto your page, onto your artwork. I'm going to be using some of my acrylic paint, and it doesn't even have to be that great. You can also go to like a paint store and ask for some of their things that were returned, or rejects, or samples, and that's a great way to use up what you have in your storehouse. If you're going to use board or some wooden structure, it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, that kind of adds to the interest. But you can buy some board from Hobby Lobby. This is something I bought from Hobby Lobby or any other store. It already has some things where you can hang it. I started putting some marks on this already. It's very smooth and nice to work with. This is also a little rougher, you can tell. This is just a piece of scrap wood. This is the main piece that I'm going to be using today, and this is just a 3-foot board that I found in my yard. And you can see it's damaged. It has some knots and it's got some cracks and marks, but that really adds to the interest of the piece. I'm also going to be distressing this to add even more texture. So really, you don't have to, you could look at some scrap lumber, or maybe you have a carpenter friend who has some scraps lying around, but really it doesn't, even this side, look, it's got a bunch of grease marks on it. That's okay. Realize that some of these things might come through the paint. I'm going to use this side, I think. I did sand this just to make it a little easier for the paint to adhere to. But really, you can use anything. I'm going to be talking to you about several different techniques that you can use in abstract painting. And it's really all about layers and about not necessarily the end result first. We're just going to be doing a lot of layers. I'm going to be showing you a number of techniques, and then you can use them in whatever order you would like to create the background. The first one that we're going to be talking about is really just with a ballpoint pen. It's going to be scribbling on some of the pieces that you have. This is where wood is really great, because when you use a ballpoint pen, you can press in and it presses into the wood and makes an indentation that might look kind of interesting later. So all you're going to do, you can use a pen, you could use a pencil. Another form of kind of distressing the wood, if you have a bigger piece, is that you could even use a hammer or a screwdriver. Again, it's about how you feel. And you just want to kind of use your feelings. And if you're feeling frustrated, get out the hammer and go for it, you know. And if you're feeling more contemplative and you just want to doodle, just use a pen.
That stupid coworker! Ah!
You can also distress the wood. You can see that I put some marks here already, and you can use a hammer to get your frustrations out. I have a piece of pipe here that you could use, you know, to make a mark. Look, that makes a kind of interesting mark, and I like that. And you can make a bunch of different marks. Some of these things are going to show through when you add more paint. You can use this side of the hammer. You can use this side of the hammer. Another layer that you can use to start with your abstract painting is to just grab some paint and get painting. Again, it's about how you're feeling. I have a number of brushes here, and you can use thin brushes if you'd like, and it's a great way to use up extra paint. And again, don't hold on to things so quickly. So tightly.
Let it go!
No!
Let it go!
No, I can't. No.
Seriously.
Let it go!
It's more about reacting to what's already on the canvas or on your wood and just how you're feeling. So you can use big brushes, little brushes, all different kinds. And just get painting. This is great also for using really crappy brushes that you have lying around. I'm just going to be using some of the things that really are interesting to me. So let's just get some of these colors out here and see what happens. You see how this, when you add more water, then it just makes it a little thinner there. And see how it reacts with the other paints? That's interesting to me. And you don't necessarily want to cover all of it. You can do small, brush strokes like this. That works. That's great for this. For this bigger board, I'm going to use some bigger strokes because it's a bigger board. I'm going to mix these two and see what happens. Light blue and react to what's on here. React to what is on the palette and what's on your plate here. I'm going to add a little white in here, I think. I'm going to brighten it up a little. Maybe I'll put some of the blue in here. Let's see what happens when I mix the blue in this. It's all about experimenting and adding some interest to your piece. We're not worried too much about what's going on. We're reacting to what's on the board already. And just moving with that. You can use kind of a dry brush technique. You see how that really brings out the wood? Or you can use, you know, more wet. Some paints are going to be a lot thicker, some are going to be thinner. I really like this piece in here, how the cracks are in here. I think that'll be very interesting toward the end. It's almost like, reminds me of going on a highway or being on a road, just moving along. And see how these different react with each other? Look at how we're bringing this blue in. Love that. You can even put paint right on your brush. Look, this is not even clean. I'm just going to put it right on here. You're painting, I want you to think about some of the colors that you might have. You can use complementary colors. You really can use almost anything you have, but you want to have something that kind of complements each other. If you want to do a really dark mood, you can use darker colors. If you want something bright and happy, you can use bright complementary colors. But just think about that a little bit when you're looking at the palette or the wood, and use that to move your colors along. Now, again, you can see that each of these pieces is kind of different. This one definitely has a lot more orange and yellow. This one has some browns and greens and reds, and this looks more blue and yellow. And that's fine. Again, these are just layers. One thing that is a little helpful is a color wheel. If you have one, it's great because a lot of these tell you what are the complementary colors, what are, you know, like a split complementary. So you can kind of use that if you want to. You don't have to at all, but it is kind of helpful, like, oh, what would kind of make this really pop? So, like, for instance, yellow, the complementary color to that is purple. So maybe I'll put some purple in. For this, you can see that we have kind of a reddish brown thing going on here. So what is the complement to that? It's more of the aqua blue green. So maybe I'll use that. For these, I don't know, we have kind of a light blue going on here. Then maybe I'll put some orange in. But again, you can use anything. You can even use metallic paint too. I have some gold and silver. That might add some interest as well. You don't want to use a ton. Again, these are layers, but you don't want it to be muddy unless you really are feeling down and, you know, sad. Then I would avoid black at this point while you're making the layers. But again, it's totally up to you. Another great way to add some color and some layers are these paint pens. And you can find these at Hobby Lobby. They usually have different like tips, either this kind or a chisel tip. And this one I didn't even start yet. But to start it, you shake it a little bit and then you press it down. Oh, that's a lovely color. Isn't that great for this? Because that looks so springy again. So that's another way that you can add some color. And add, if you put it down, it'll be a little, these are a little more watery. See that? I'm reacting to what's on there. And just kind of, oh, I think I'll do that. But I love that color. It's very fun. You can draw on it. You can do whatever seems good to you. Just act with that. But these colors are really, I'm enjoying these colors. And these are sinking in here to this. If you dab it like this, you can make different patterns. So that's one way to add some more colors with the paint pens. And they come in a variety of colors. This is just one set. You can get metallic. You can get more. They're not super expensive, and they last quite a while. So that's another way to get some stuff on. So we've been putting a lot of different layers on our wood pieces, a lot of paint and different things using pens and other things. But now another way to add interest to your piece is to take some of the paint off. And you can scrape off paint that has already been dried, or you can make marks in it with paint that is wet. And really you can use, again, almost anything. You could use a wooden spoon, like the end of it. You could use the end of your paintbrush. You could use, this is just a scraper from, you know, my kitchen drawer. You can use anything, and you can just scrape things off, and the colors that are underneath are going to be revealed. Some of the earlier layers that you've done will come through. There's several different ways you can do this. Now a lot of these things have already started drying, so I'm going to add more paint to show you these techniques. I've put a little bit on here. So let's just grab a brush. I think I'm going to put the blue on here. So I'm just going to paint some so we have some wet paint to work with. Again, not too concerned. I kind of like this color with this. So one thing, you can use really anything to take stuff off. You can use like the back of a brush that makes some interesting marks here. You can use a fork if you want. Look, that really gets through, and you can see the colors coming up underneath. See that? I think I'm going to do a little wavy action here. That's kind of fun. Another way to take paint off is, looks like I need a little bit more paint on here to show you this. So this is kind of watery, and it's wet. And you can just use either like a paper towel, just dry and crumple it up. That makes some interesting patterns, and then you could almost use it as a stamp. Or you could use, you know, a sock if you'd like. See how that you move that around a little bit. Another way is also if you're using acrylic paint, you just get a little sprayer with a little water and put a few drops on there. And you can either just leave it, or you can, you know, plot it, see what happens. Again, it's all about experimentation. Maybe you'll end up getting some of this other stuff down here off. Kind of blot it, that's kind of interesting. See how that's moving? That's different. Or you could get it wet and move it like this. Then it becomes a lot thinner. You're almost like you're painting with this. Maybe you want some texture. Look at this texture in here. Look at that texture. Isn't that fun? And that's just and some of that might come through, some might not. Again, these are layers. And I'm using this to move it around. We're just getting some background stuff on here. Isn't that great? I love it. Another thing that you can use to take off paint, and I really like this too, is just a scraper. So let's look at I'm going to put some red on this piece. I'm going to put some red on here. I really like red. It's one of my favorite colors. So I'm going to get some paint. I'm going to do this side. And, oops, there we go. Again, happy accidents. I'm going to get some red. This is a little, I don't really want. That doesn't make me happy, so I'm going to take that off. But, so here, I have this little kitchen scraper, and these make bigger marks, see? And it's, again, you can move it around. Look at that. Move it around. You can use it in different ways. That's the thing that you want to do. You want to experiment. with this. Just experiment. Oh, see, look at this. That's kind of fun. I like that. But again, don't hold on to things too much because this might all be covered. I don't know. But I do like this color. It's got a lot of energy. And I just like this color. Oh, see, here's some paint that was a little wet. So I'm moving that into the red. Isn't that fun? Another way that I like to use paint and to add interest to the piece is using a brayer. Now this is usually used in printmaking or maybe to get something down flat if you're gluing something, but you can also use it in your abstract piece. Now we're going to use another tool that I love. I talked to you about the brayer, so we're going to use a brayer, and also if you have a palette knife, I really enjoy this and the marks that it makes, so we're going to try that as well. So with the brayer, you can put stuff on here and roll it, or you can roll it straight onto your piece. And look how that kind of makes these interesting marks here. You can add like one on each side. Look at that. That's kind of fun. Again, use what you have and just go with it. I love the brayer. I just feel like it's so smooth and it's fun to work with. I'm gonna put a little more yellow here. Look at that. That's definitely going to be something that we can work with. We'll get to the edges. Let's see. Let's try some purple with that. I'm going to put that on which piece? I'm going to try this one. Look, this doesn't have much. Oh, see, look. That just makes it pop right out there. Look at that. That's so fun. You can even put, I'm going to put a little lighter color on here. Let's try mixing these two together for my kind of a pinky color. And you can put it even right on your brayer if you want. Look at that. Wonder what that will do. Where do you think that would look good? Let's try it on here. Look at that. Wow, that's fun. Again, not planning it. And then as the paint gets off, then it gets a little more different colors. Look at the wood in here. Look at the wood in that. That just really is interesting to me. Get the edges. Make sure that you're getting all of your piece. And again, this is just background stuff that we're working with. And you can, if you want to change up colors, you can just wipe this off, get it a little wet. And especially, that's what I like with acrylic. You can just wipe it off and get it all clean. Oh yeah, see? I'm just swirling it around. Again, this is not planned. I'm kind of letting it go a little bit. I really like that. That makes me happy. But see, look, I see some place right here that is kind of open. So I want to make sure to get that. I'm going to put a little something on that. I need something there. Don't know what. I'm going to put it, cover it up a little bit. I'm going to just mix this right in there. Any place that you see that it's a little open or that the wood is showing through, make sure that you cover that. And you can see that there's a lot of things that are happening here. You can still see the pen marks that I made originally. You can see the scraping. And a lot of the extra layers, but this is going to be a great background. I love it. The other thing that we talked about is using the palette knife. It's kind of the same but as the brayer, but it gives you a little more control of what you're doing. Another way to add another layer is to use spray paint. These are, again, it's a great way to use up stuff that you have around the house or in the shed. Any color works. Again, we're just making layers, and we really want to think about how we're feeling and how we're reacting to the marks that are on the board already. We don't want to think too much about this. We kind of want to get our brains out of the way, so to speak. So now I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about using some techniques for spray paint and also spatter. Sometimes the hardest part about using spray paint is getting the cover off. Haha, I got it off. Okay, so I have silver here. I also have some black. I know that I talked about maybe not using black or using it kind of sparingly. Again, it's totally up to you. It does make things, it really draws your attention. So just be aware of that. But again, it's just a layer. You might want to cover it up. Fun one to do for painting is to use spatter. Now when you use spatter, again, I have acrylic paint, that works the best. You want to get the brush very wet because that's what's going to make the interesting stuff. So I have some green on here and it's pretty wet. The more water you have, so you can just flick it on. This is a little light. You can flick it on or you can tap it. Those make some kind of fun things. If you need more water, then just get some more water in there. If you tap it like this, you have a little more, kind of get it where a little more pigment comes off. And I add some interest on this. Let's see, what color do you think would look good on here, Marcos? What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue? Let's put some blue on there. We'll put it like a bluish green. Blue on here. And we'll just kind of see what oh, yeah! See, look! That's awesome. Look at that color. Yes, you might get spatters on your face. But okay, now, so look, so it's pretty wet. It's pretty wet, and you can even use, look, I have this air, like stuff you use to clean off your keyboard. Let's see what happens when I do that. Oh, look at that. Look, it's almost like a spray paint, but it's moving it around. As we work on finishing up these abstract pieces, another layer that you can use, and again, you can use any of these techniques in any order, or maybe you want to go back to some of the earlier techniques that you talked about. But another technique to add some fun and to release some energy and to move the piece around is to use stencils. You can use anything that you have. I have a number of stencils here that are just shapes. Maybe you have some stencils that are letters that are interesting to you, that you might be listening to some music and think about a word or something that you want to incorporate into your piece, or a conversation you might have had earlier in the day, or some sort of meaning you want to convey. Stencils are a great way to do that. And you can just use the stencil and a pen. You can use paint with the stencils. Another way to kind of take off or kind of have a stencil is just to use tape. I mean, put tape on your piece and paint over it, and then later on take it off. It just is a way to fill the space and, you know, find out where the piece is moving. Next, I'm going to be talking to you about putting collage onto your abstract art piece. We talked earlier about grabbing different things that interest you, and I'm sure you, if you have done any artwork whatsoever, or even if you haven't, you might have cut things out of newspapers that interest you, or patterns that interest you, or I cut out a few different things that I thought was interesting. You can use them whole, or you can use parts of it depending on how big your piece is. You can even rip things up, like, oh, I like this color bananas, so I'm gonna rip these out. But there's two different techniques for adding collage to your piece. One is a wet collage, where you put it into wet paint and use the paint kind of as a glue, or you can use a dry collage, and you can, once the paint is dry, you can just glue or use rubber cement and put it right onto your collage. So we'll talk more about that. As you can see, we've added a few more layers to these pieces using the techniques that we talked about previously. And you can see that some of the original stuff that we put on here, some of the pen marks and things, are still showing through, but there's a lot more texture on these. Collage is basically just adding something to your piece and gluing it on. You can find things, I have a few things from different books that I have. You can also use newspaper. You can use magazines. You can use old books, or even old artwork that you don't like and you're going to toss anyway. You can use any of those kind of things to put it on your piece and add a little pizzazz. What you're going to want to have is a brayer. Keep that, because that will be making sure that it's adhered tightly. You can do two different types of things, and I'm going to talk to you about wet collage first. Wet collage is mostly using paint to adhere something to your piece, and then using that and then doing the edges. So we'll look at wet collage, and then I'm going to show you dry collage. Dry collage is basically using adhesive. You can use a spray adhesive that you can get at Hobby Lobby. This is kind of messy, so I usually do it like in a box or something because it gets all over. I really like to use rubber cement. That does a very good job, and you know it's going to stay a long time, and then we're going to put the brayer down to make sure it's tight. So let's look at wet collage first. First, I'm going to pick my pieces and kind of look at the piece. This is upside down, so I have thought about this before. I'm going to use this wolf that's laying down. It kind of reminds me of New Mexico a little bit, so it is telling a visual story. And when you're looking at where to put pieces, take them first and just kind of move them around. Where do you think it would look good? This is something I cut out. This is just a scrap of the same paper, of the same picture that I ripped. And so, I don't know, you can put it where you think that it looks good. Use stuff that's on the board already. And you also want to have a little balance. Some of this stuff might be covered up a little bit because we're going to paint over some of the edges to make them a little more, incorporate them into the piece. But, yeah, so just kind of move them around and see where you kind of want them. I feel like, I don't know, I like the wolf where it is right here, and I'm going to add some balance. I feel like this kind of picks up on the orange a little bit. I like this, so I'm going to have this here. You can add other pieces, just kind of move it around and figure out where you want it before you start to glue. Now we're going to use paint. So what color? You can use some of the colors that are already on the top, some of the more recent layers, or you can kind of look underneath and say, hey, I really want to bring out this yellow that we started out with, or maybe this orange in here, because that kind of goes with the orange of the fur. There's some orange here. There's also some gold, there's silver. So just kind of pick up on what feels good to you. Now for dry technique, this piece looks a lot different also. Remember we started out with some browns and reds, but as I added layers, some other colors kind of emerged there. I chose to put on this, we're going to use a dry technique, I chose these fish. And the colors just are so awesome with this piece, I think. And they're kind of quirky. I grew up near the water, so this brings back some good memories for me. This reminds me of water, and I went fishing with my dad often. So, and they're kind of quirky, which I like. So I'm going to move these around and see how I want some of these. Again, I'm thinking about balance. And I'm looking at what's going on here. So I'm just kind of thinking about this a little bit. With this edge, I kind of want it toward the edge. I like this because it kind of goes with this and pointing to this circle. Maybe that will, again, you don't want people to be looking way off. I feel like everything is going to the middle on this. So I feel like I'm good where these are. So I'm going to use dry technique. I'm going to use rubber cement, and we're just going to glue these on, and then we're going to use our brayer to make sure it's secure. Okay? For this piece, I chose this bird. Again, it reminds me of New Mexico a little bit. We see hawks around here, and I just thought there's a lot of energy here. I was looking at different things on here, and I kind of like it on this end. If you see this splotch, it almost looks like it's, you know, diving into the water or something. I'm looking at some of the marks on here of where I want to place it, so I feel like this kind of goes, you know, right with it. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I want to keep this little black, maybe a little bit of the magenta in there. So I feel like this is a good placement. I might add something over here later, but I think I'm going to stay with this. It looks like it's good in motion. talked about a ton of techniques, and I'm ready to finish these pieces. So I'm really happy about how these pieces turned out. For this piece, it really reminded me of a night sky, and so I put some stars in using the spatter method. Some of the spatters got a little big, so I turned them into fireflies. I added some pen marks and stencils. I added some marker and some grass. I also, this is a great technique sometimes you can use if you're going to be using collage. You can go back over and paint on the paper. That's what I did, and it gives it a little more texture, a little more meat there. It almost looks like I painted this coyote because I put some paint marks on there. So that kind of adds it. Another thing that you're going to want to do, again, it is up to you, but I painted the sides. I just feel like that really finishes it off. So when you're all done with your piece and you feel like you're happy with it, just get some tape. You can get painter's tape pretty much anywhere, Hobby Lobby or whatever, and then put it along the sides, obviously all around, and make sure that's on, and then paint the sides. And it doesn't have to be black. I chose black. I just think it kind of finishes it off. And then you can carefully take that off when you're done. This one, I really debated which way I wanted to have it. I set it one way and the other way before I added some of the elements. I decided on this direction. Yeah, so I just added some of the same things, some of the black marks with like a permanent marker. I wanted to bring out some of the red from the background, so I added a little bit here, and this is supposed to be seaweed. And I put some on the bottom. I used pen to kind of highlight this moon type thing. Here's a boat that, I thought it looked kind of like a wrecked boat, so I put that down there. But yeah, just adding a few little elements just really makes things pop out. To finish this piece, again, I did some of the same things. This was just an orange kind of splotch, and it looked like a mesa to me, so I added some texture. I really like this middle part. I don't know if I'm too jazzed about this other side. I might go back later and paint over it. I don't know. I'm not sure if I like this or not. I was kind of trying to figure out what to do with this end. But again, you can just experiment. If you don't like something, you can paint over it. It's okay. I do like this middle part. Some of the splash marks in here I kind of highlighted with a little extra like slightly different color just to kind of pop that, and I added some trees and some grass here. Trying to think what else. I added some stuff over here and some black marks on this side. These remind me of chilies a little bit. So yeah, I'm not sure if this piece is done yet or not, but the great thing is that I can put it away for a day or two and come back and revisit it. When I am all done, then I will probably paint the sides also. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today. I had so much fun showing you all these different techniques, so I hope that you have a chance to use some of those. Take a Saturday, grab a friend, and get going on some art. Thank you so much for taking some time to watch this. The Octavia Fill-In Public Library here in Gallup, New Mexico invites you to join us for live and recorded presentations daily throughout the month of May. And you can find a schedule of events on our website, which is ofpl.online, and make sure to follow us on Facebook. Like and subscribe to OFPL's YouTube channel to stay up to date on all library events and programming. And also, if you want to watch this, this presentations and others are going to be on the YouTube channel also. So on behalf of the Octavia Fill-In Public Library, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you at the library.